Welcome back to War Room Pandemic on the John Fredericks Radio Network nationwide on Real America's Voice. That's Dish Channel 219, Comcast Channel 113 in the Chicago area, Newsmax TV in 70 million homes on G News, GTV, and of course every other apparatus. Where we got Raheem?
Well, I want people to go and subscribe over to Rumble. That's rumble.com. Make sure you're looking for Bannon's War Room. And really importantly, whether you're watching this live or watching the video stream, you need to go and download the podcast as well. Whatever it is you get, you're on your Apple device and your Android or device. It helps us reach more people. The more people that subscribe, the more people that rate it, the higher up the rankings we go, and it helps more people. And this is a critical time to reach more people.
Okay, we're now going to bring in Mayor Rudy Giuliani. And, just remember, when you're reading these reports that, Rudy's out on his own, he's going rogue, all this kind of stuff, remember, that is all leaked from the people that want to quit. That's all leaked from the people that are doing their resumes right now. Okay? Rudy Giuliani is a warrior. Rudy Giuliani is the one that got the president through the impeachment, right? Rudy Giuliani, we now know from the hard drive from hell, if the FBI and people had taken all the work Rudy had done and done it, wouldn't have been an impeachment trial. Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee, right? We would have been able to focus on the pandemic earlier. So I'll take Rudy's record against anybody's record. I'll match up, all the progressive left and all the mainstream want to talk about science and data and evidence, right? We got that. We're science-based. We're database. You guys look at this data right now. You have to throw every team in Major League Baseball have to throw a no-hitter on a, you do a schedule of the 32 games ago. You get 32 no-hitters. That's database. That's science-based. That's evidence-based. Where you guys? That's where Rudy Giuliani is. So all the people out there and the 71 million people that voted for Donald Trump that know he won and you want to close on that win, Rudy's not going to back off 1 inch. Rudy is the ultimate honey badger. He doesn't give. He's just going to go grind because that's who Rudy Giuliani is. You think he would have gotten through 9/11 if you didn't grind? It'd be easy to roll up in a ball and suck your thumb and cry after 9/11, or get on it and help return New York City to be the greatest city in the world, something it's not right now. It'd been very easy. All the threats from the Sicilian mob, it'd been very easy to walk away from putting away the 5 families, but he put them away. It'd been very easy about Ivan Boesky and Mike Milken. These guys were killers and bad guys. I don't care how much cancer work Mike Milken's done. That's all fine. They were bad units. Okay? Rudy Giuliani broke that. You think you're a wilting flower? You think what's up against Rudy Giuliani, the guys at this campaign or whatever, they're leaking on him and putting a knife in him, you think he cares? He's been he took the mob down. He took the 5 families. Go watch The Godfather, right? He took the 5 families down. He took the mob that ran Wall Street down, right? He stared down the radical jihadists trying to destroy New York City. You think he's afraid of this? Rudy Giuliani's like John Paul Jones. He has not yet begun to fight. But today you're going to see it. He's going to put forward the lawsuits in Pennsylvania. So Rudy, Mayor Giuliani, thank you for joining us here in the War Room Pandemic. Obviously, we're fans. Do I have Rudy?
Well, I mean, the reality
Rudy,
is that we do. I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you perfectly, sir.
Okay, so we're going to file the first major lawsuit today in Pennsylvania, and that basically attacks the entire vote in Pennsylvania as being unlawful. In both Democratic bastions in the state, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, there was a concerted effort to corral the Republican inspectors, which they did successfully, so that every one of the mail-in ballots that was supposed to be inspected by a Republican and a Democrat to assure that there wasn't fraud, because as you know, mail-in ballots are much more fraud than normal balloting. That's according to the Supreme Court. Well, we got to see none of them. All of those ballots went through, and they could be 500 dead people. They could be the Democratic worker in the back filling them out as they feed them out. Once that envelope is separated, there's no way in the world to check its authenticity. And under the law of Pennsylvania, which is the governing law in an election under the Constitution, those ballots are unlawful ballots. The count we're up to in Philadelphia is about 135, 150. The count in Pittsburgh, about 100. And it's going to go well over that. Pittsburgh could go up to as high as 330, Pennsylvania at 500. Just at the numbers we're at now, it flips the election in Pennsylvania from Trump to Biden. That doesn't get into then the allegations of backdating, the allegations of changed ballots. Pennsylvania was a mess. It was in the two Democratic strongholds, it was massive, massive cheating. Every cheating tactic that is known to man was used, right? Every single one.
Yeah, I see dead people. But Mayor, let me ask you about strategically. We've kind of come to a crossroads. The people that are advocating, we go and fight and do this stuff and we try to get recounts versus, I think, if I'm correct, your strategic direction, which is no. These are non-certifiable ballots. These are unlawful ballots. These have no chain of custody. They can't be verified. They can't be certified. Therefore, they got to go. And you're going to fight on that ground, correct? I just want to make sure our audience understands
Sure.
different
a ballot. There's only one chance to verify a mail-in ballot, and that's why there's such a strong rule. They have to be inspected by both sides, and that chance occurs when you separate the ballot from the outside envelope. The outside envelope has all the information on it that verifies the ballot: the name, the address, the person. That's where you can check. Is it a real person? Is it a live person? Is it the campaign worker in the back? You can look for suspicious things like 10 of them show up in the same pen and the same handwriting. All of a sudden, the inspector says, no, let's put these 10 aside. Let's put these 5 aside. 10 to 20% of these ballots turn out to be fraudulent normally. So that's why there's such a heavy emphasis on this process.
But hang on. I want to go back to this. That's the whole concept of naked ballots. We knew this from the beginning. We talked about it in the show ad infinitum. The campaign, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a time when all those were delivered to the center, at least in the Philadelphia area, right? Were delivered to the convention center, and that's when those ballots were going to be taken out. And it was the weekend before. I think it was the Friday and Saturday before the vote. That's when the campaign had the opportunity. And if you're telling us they didn't have the opportunity, I thought that's where both campaigns are going. And I kept saying you're going to have knife fights in these ballot rooms. That's where it's going to take place. Did that take place or did it not take place? And if it didn't take place, is it back on the Trump campaign that they dropped the ball? Or you're saying that they were absolutely deliberately kept out of that by campaign officials of the Democratic Party apparatus in Philadelphia?
First time they were invited, and the first ballot that was opened was the morning of the election. And it was done at the convention center, and they set up a number of desks where the campaign workers were that were going to count the ballots. And then they took our inspectors and placed them over 20 feet away in corrals where you could see the envelope coming out. You could see it being separated. You could see it being put in 2 different bins, but you couldn't see a darn thing written on it. So there was no way to verify. I mean, it was a useless act. So we argued and argued. They argued and argued and argued. They were never allowed more than 20 feet. They actually were pushed back even further. They tried binoculars. Binoculars didn't work. And then they went to court, and the judge ordered them 10 feet closer. And when they asked to be 10 feet closer, the sheriff threatened Corey Lewandowski, I think it was, with arrest. And never at any time was there an opportunity to view the ballot.
Is that, but I just want to ask you, hang on for a second. I just want to ask you again. Is that the counting of the votes that came from that ballot, those ballots, or is that the actual separation of what the issue was going to be, the naked ballots, which we talked about? You're right, on your math would have been 100,000 to 200,000 would have been disqualified. This is why when the judge ruled on that and the Supreme Court ruled on that weeks before, people thought this was a major victory for the Trump campaign, which it was. Was what happened on election morning the counting of the votes or the separation of the envelopes from the ballots?
The separation of the envelope from the ballot that then led immediately to the counting of the vote. So the envelope was opened. The envelope was put aside.
Why did the Trump campaign not go and go outside and have a press conference right then and have a firestorm? That you cannot.
They did. They had several
on Tuesday morning. Okay, maybe I missed
that. They had several press conferences, none of which was covered until Corey Lewandowski's press conference late that afternoon.
Oh, I remember that.
They
Okay, I
began,
remember
they
that.
began
Well,
complaining about it immediately. And then I went there the next day. And the next day we had a major press conference about it and produced
okay.
the head of the team that told the world that he had been excluded for the entire day, that he had been moved around, and he had never been given an opportunity to see a single ballot. He had a list of 50 people who were willing to testify that they never got to see a single ballot. And they were kept in a corral like they were a bunch of horses or steer. And at no time, and he estimated, at least for him personally, he was standing 20, he actually thought it was further than 20 feet. He was standing, he said to me, he was standing 20 yards away. He couldn't see anything. And he looked at the counter, and during that time, 135,000 ballots went through. He said what he could see is just a physical removal. And he said many times the worker didn't even bother to look at the envelope, meaning the envelope could have had XYG on it. He said very often, and he described it to me, very often, this is what happened.
Okay, Mayor, what is for our audience? Walk us through the critical path? Are you guys going to file sometime this afternoon, and are you going to have a press conference?
Hopefully, right around noontime in the Middle District of Pennsylvania, which is in Harrisburg, we're going to file a statewide lawsuit. It has many parts to it. I'm emphasizing the one that has the most numbers and is the most dramatic. There's actually other forms of fraud, like the backdating of the actual envelope from the 4th to the 3rd, which directly violates Justice Alito's order. Justice Alito had ruled for us that ballots that come in after the close of voting have to be put aside and cannot be counted. What we know is that a number of them were backdated. So it looked as if it came in on the 3rd or was postmarked on the 3rd, and those were put in the count, which would be a violation of Judge Alito's order. We don't have a number yet. We're definitely in the low thousands, but we may be higher.
Mayor, this is Jack Maxey. I mean, aside from the problems with the vote count, we have problems going on at the U.S. Post Office up in Erie with the backdating of things. There got to be multiple felonies that have nothing to do with the vote count. And one of the things our listeners keep asking for is, why are we not threatening these participants with criminal penalties for their participation and requesting that the people come out and come forward more aggressively with that as the threat?
Because the Justice Department, at least not in an open way, has not entered into this investigation, even though there are, as you say, Jack, very substantial allegations of crimes. I mean, there are allegations like you're talking about in Erie in at least 20 different jurisdictions that I know of. Numerous allegations in Michigan like that, including people that were threatened to do it. They were told they had to do it. They refused to do it and were threatened with the loss of their job if they didn't do it. I mean, these allegations, I would have to describe these as, a bucket of allegations here, bucket of allegations there.
Mayor,
we
got to jump. Yeah. And we know you have to get ready to file and have your presser. We'll have an update from your team about where this press conference is going to be. Mayor, thank you very much, and we'll get all your social media up.
Another one tomorrow, the latest on Wednesday. That'll be in Michigan.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yep. It's huge. Mayor Rudy Giuliani, we're going to be back in a moment to give you all the details of what's going on with these lawsuits.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Rudy's going for the win. Just make sure you understand this. Rudy's going for the win. This is not about a recount. He's going to disqualify the ballots. If it's not certifiable, Pennsylvania state legislature, right? If it's not certifiable by the Secretary of State, and remember, we had her frozen in place on Friday night, and she's lying, right? Justice Alito, who's from that neck of the woods, he knows how they roll up there, right? Remember, there are no coincidences. I don't think they pick Alito randomly, okay? And you read his opinion. It was an order. Back off. You had her frozen. That's why they dropped the bomb on Saturday morning. You got Boris and the team out in Arizona, 9,000 votes positive for Trump. You got Alito win. I got Arizona coming my way. I got Rudy up there walking through, and Rudy's walking through. He's got some affidavits, but the subtext is, I'm going to disqualify the ballots. They knew it was coming. That's why they dropped Biden's the winner. Yeah. 11 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Are you kidding me? Come on, folks. This is information warfare. You're in the war room. Man up. We got this. They're nervous. And what Rudy's talking about is that we talked about this a month ago on the naked ballot situation. Yes, the statistical evidence shows that 10% of naked ballots to 20%. Remember, we'd rounded into 15, I think, Jack, because it's kind of complicated to do it. If I had to, I'm not. This is why I kept saying, if you walk in, you vote and it drops down, it's good. That's between you and God. Everything else is complicated. I'm not saying it's not complicated. I'm not saying mine would count or Jack's would count. Hey, but you take a chance because multiple people are going to touch this. I want to go back out now to Phoenix, Arizona, to Maricopa County, to Arizona, to Boris Epshteyn. Boris was one of the top. He was the leader of the surrogates in 2016. He's also a lawyer. People don't realize this. They just think he's a financier and a Trump supporter. He's also a lawyer. So, Boris, before I go back to Arizona, you just heard Rudy, the mayor. You've got a sense of where these lawsuits are going. Is the strategy, you've got a lot of guys saying we just should go for the small ball and do the recounts, and you got other guys saying no, with the president saying they stole this through the mail-in ballots, right? And we have a constitutional crisis here. We got to get to the heart of that. Give us your weighing and measuring of those two strategic directions of this.
I think that they work hand in hand together, Steve, right? The goal here, and I've been saying this, I feel like I'm on repeat, right, is count every legal vote. I've said this everywhere to anybody who will listen, and that comes from the president. Count every legal vote. That's what we have to do. And the campaign's going to court all across the country, including here in Arizona, to count every legal vote. We're insisting on getting to the bottom of every voting irregularity, every piece of voter fraud, every vote that should not be counted. Is not only, if they're illegal votes, they shouldn't be counted either. Someone said to me, well, why don't you want people's votes to count? I said, well, let me put this in terms you understand. You live. Okay, it was a live. I said, what if 1,000 Russians, they're all scared of the Russians, right? What if 1,000 Russians showed up in Pennsylvania, Russian citizens, and voted for Donald Trump? Not saying that happening. Relax, everybody. What if that happened? Would you want those votes to count? No, no, no. Well, those are illegal votes. So we do not want illegal votes to count. We only want legal votes to count, and we're going to make sure that legal votes are counted. Every legal vote is counted all across the country. And here's something super important.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is the president's duty as the chief executive of this country, as the chief magistrate of this country, to ensure that this election is finalized and certified fair and square, and it's done with full integrity, and that's what he's doing.
That's it in a nutshell. That's what Starr was saying. That's what people are saying. If you count every vote, you're destroying this system. You have to count every legal vote. Last question, Boris. Out in Arizona, when are we going to – we've seen the direction of the hand recount in Maricopa County. We've seen this, how long it's taken to go through the last, 50 to 100,000 ballots. When are we going to get to the bigger picture? When are you guys out there going to start thinking about going into court about this whole mail-in ballot fiasco and really get to the heart of it, of the legality of these mail-in ballots?
Well, there's a couple points there, right? So I'm here on the ground. First of all, the enthusiasm of President Trump is unbelievable. What you talked about earlier, and congrats, happy 4-year anniversary to you, my man. We were there together, and I'll never forget, I just tweeted it out, right? 4-year anniversary of the big win of the MAGA movement, and we got, about 10, 11, 12 million votes more this time? The MAGA movement is marching forward. We're going to continue taking over this country. And when every legal vote is counted, President Trump will win a re-election, full stop, okay? Now,
Amen.
to your question, we're going to get a drop in Maricopa today, and we're going to get some drops in Pinal and Pima tomorrow. I am confident that when those numbers come out, Steve, when I showed out here 4 days ago, the difference was 70,000. Now it's under 17. I'm confident when those numbers come out, which are all election day voters, our people, most of them, this is going to come to President Trump. Even CNN yesterday did a 3.5-minute segment on how Arizona still has a strong path for President Trump. Can you imagine that? That is where we are.
Okay, Boris, we're going to come back to you in the afternoon show, 5 to 7. We'll be coming back out to Arizona. Boris Epshteyn,
Rock and roll.
heading up the Trump campaign movement out there. They got great lawyers, great team on the ground. I want to now go to the team. By the way, I want to, Vish, I think what we'll do is look at that CNN package between now and 5 o'clock. I want to play part of that CNN package. CNN actually admitted. I mean, they put guys on the ground. They had Boris and other people, and they said, hey, this thing's legitimate. The other thing to remember, there was another 2.5, 3, 4,000 drop overnight. Every time there's another drop, Trump's coming back. And people are saying, oh, Bannon, you guys are scrambling for, well, hey, all we're scrambling for is a legal, certifiable vote. We have to have that as a country. Joe Biden has to understand. He has to have it as the Biden people have to understand. Until that is done, he will never be considered legitimate. He will never be considered legal. And there may be people around him that want that. There may be, the number one job he should be recruiting right now. He shouldn't be naming the head of the task force. The number one job he should be getting is the food taster. Don't take me down again for another week, Madeline, because I said food taster. Right? It's just a figure of speech. Or we're going to get Madeline a good cigar. Midge, what do you got? Let's go around the horn here. What do we got? There's so much. And by the way, so noon, around noon, there's going to be a lawsuit filed in Philadelphia that's going for the kill shot. The kill shot is the disqualification of the mail-in ballots in the beginning of discovery. He's also got, he's got the dead people. Here, believing in the Judeo-Christian West, we believe in eternal life, right? In Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, they'll say they believe in eternal voting. There's 21,000 dead people on the rolls. I'm not saying 21,000 dead people died, or 21,000 dead people voted, but they do have certain, the president's going to have, he's going to have the full list and the obits. And trust me, he will read them. Okay, and he'll have the dates of when they voted.
And you saw this in other states, too. For example, they did not purge the rolls in Wisconsin as they were required to do. And you've seen this over the last several years, the Democrats complaining that these purge of the voter rolls is somehow going to harm them. And now we know why. I mean, you've watched this grift play out for years, and now it is being exposed.
Maggie, what do you got for us?
Just to piggyback on that, people on social media are pointing out the fact how hypocritical it is that there are hundreds of thousands of people out partying in the street this weekend, but you couldn't hold a Trump rally without it being called a super spreader event.
Couldn't hold a funeral.
Yeah, couldn't hold a funeral.
Couldn't go to mass.
Still
Couldn't
can't go to
mass.
church.
Can't go to church.
Yeah,
And
can't
we've
go to
been
church
saying
in San
this for
Francisco.
months, right? The
Yeah.
moment after the election,
Gonna happen.
COVID-19 was
Right.
not going to be dangerous anymore.
The next thing you're going to have this afternoon, you're going to have the National Teachers Union say, hey, we got to get back to school tomorrow, right? Ready to go.
Of course, not school choice. And let's remember, Joe Biden's education policy is going to be teacher-centered. Parents, all you parents out there, it's not centered around your kids. In writing, it is teacher-centered.
We're not even going to get into, because he's not going to be president, we're not even going to get into his shock and awe comment, right? The staff's going to have shock and awe on executive orders to undo all of Trump's presidency in the first 72 hours. We're not going to deal with that since it's not going to happen. We don't chase rabbits here on the war room. But Raheem, what have you got for us?
Well, look, I've been in the data and in the fraud all weekend, and from Philadelphia and back down here in Washington D.C. And here's my analysis so far. Look, I've seen this stuff before. Remember, in East London, in Birmingham.
You warned us about this. You guys warned us. You do these mail-in votes, you'll never win another election.
That's
They'll be
correct.
rife with fraud.
I wrote that article back in
Right.
August. I said, look, here, boom, boom, boom. This is how it works.
And Nigel reinforced the other day, said as soon as you go to postal votes, it's over.
That's right. Now, here's what I'm saying. The fraud is so broad. They've done it in such a broad way that unless you're looking for
Called
it,
smart.
it's undetectable. Unless you're looking for it, it's never going to jump out at you with the naked eye. But the thing is, everyone is looking for it now. And whether it's naked ballots, whether it's people signing witness signatures on ballots when they shouldn't be doing so in the post game of all of this, whether it's ballot harvesting, whether it's destruction. Because here's one of the things we're looking at statistically is there is a major, major aberration in how many people voted down the ticket, right? Here for not down the ticket for Biden. And okay, the spread between Hillary Clinton and Trump was broadly about 150 odd thousand people, right? You're talking in Pennsylvania. But the spread between Trump and Biden is about 500,000.
Absolutely. That's where the grift is.
Come
on.
Which is extraordinary.
It
What
doesn't.
would suggest,
It
however,
doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
It talk to people.
It's
It doesn't happen.
It's having 18 no hitters in one day. It doesn't happen. And CNN and everything has pounded into us that the unwashed deplorables. You're not science based. You're not evidence based. You're not database. Let's get into the data and probability and assessment. CNN and mainstream media. Let's just do it.
And here's the thing people need to realize as well, that what that tells us, what that data point tells us, is not just that people were ticking the Biden box en masse, i.e. ballot harvesting en masse. What it also means is that a lot of Trump votes were lost. They have to have been lost for that to have happened.
Okay, you're going to explain that to our audience who's going to be on tenterhooks. That's in radio and TV. That's great. You leave them hanging. They got to listen to the commercials because they want to hear what Raheem says when he gets back. You're in the war room. Maggie Vanderberg, the conscious of the war room, Jack Maxey. And, of course, Raheem Kassam's back from Philadelphia. We're live from the nation's capital. Be back in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we're here to give you the data, the legal structure. At noon today, there's going to be, or thereabouts around noon today when we go off air for the morning show, there's going to be a lawsuit filed that's really going for the, it's also going for all the problems and the fraud and the dead voters and all that to get into federal court to be able to start to do discovery. But also Rudy is going, he's playing long ball, and he's going to go for to disqualify these mail-in ballots because of the naked ballot problem and not letting people near that to review it. We'll have all of that in the afternoon show. We'll have a ton of legal analysis and actually people that are working on these cases there. It's the tip of the spear. Michigan, another big lawsuit's coming out tomorrow. The Michigan legal team is on fire, okay, there with all these problems of the software and everything else, all the eyewitnesses they've got of what was happening in Michigan. Arizona's coming our way now with the numbers. Georgia's a fiasco down there. They're getting into that, talking about a hand recount in Fulton County, which I know is going to be fought to the death, but there's also going to be lawsuits coming down there. You got Collins in charge of it. You got Lynn Wood, the great. These are fighters. You got the Matt Gaetzes. Now you got the fighters that have been deployed, okay, from Wisconsin to Michigan to Pennsylvania to Georgia to Arizona. And why has the mainstream media not called North Carolina? I realize they got votes that can come into the 12th, but hey, this thing's done. They're not calling it because they don't want on that chart Donald Trump to get closer, right? They don't want Donald Trump to get closer. This is all information warfare. That's fine. I got no problem with that. But just call it. Just say what it is. It's information warfare. Raheem, you left the audience hanging at the break, and plus Jack Maxey's dug up something. Tell us what were you saying before the break?
Look, I mean, one of the big, and as I said, also you got to look at the fact that this is not just one type of fraud you're seeing. This is not just ballot harvesting. This is not just software glitches, Jack. Right? This is not just. Look, there's all sorts going on here. And you can see there's all sorts going on here if you drill down into the data. At least that's what the data suggests, right? It's up to the courts and it's up to the lawyers to prove it. We also need to get witness testimonies and witness statements confirming all this thing. I know they're working on a bevy of affidavits about a lot of this. But the top ticket voting stuff really intrigues me, and I've been poring over this with just I can't say that I've been the one doing the research. We've got some just amazing statisticians on this at the moment. Now, look, the interesting part of this to me, when they first brought me this and said, hey, top ticket voting for Joe Biden was just astronomical, and top ticket voting for President Trump was actually upside down, which meant that people were voting either down the ticket Republican and not voting for Trump, or voting a mix on the ticket, right? So he's under by like 55,000 negative, right? Where Biden's up by 500,000 on top ticket voting. So I said, okay, look, that's a really interesting data point, but we got to look at it from a historical perspective. What does it mean? Okay, so the same kind of numbers Hillary Clinton got in 2016 on top ticket voting alone, but the differential between Trump and Hillary was within about 100, 150,000 here. Now, we're being asked to believe that 500-odd thousand, 550-odd thousand differential exists between Biden and Trump in top-ticket voting in Pennsylvania, which is, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as a lot of the people who are running these numbers are concerned, is a mathematical anomaly of epic proportions, right? That just doesn't happen. And I said to them, hey, look, what would lead to us getting these numbers? What would have to have happened to us getting these numbers? Said one of two things. Either Trump was so wildly unpopular in the state that by this logic, he shouldn't have been able to turn out 20 people to a rally, okay, in Pennsylvania. The other part the other part of it is Trump votes were somehow lost somewhere. There had to be Trump votes taken out, Trump top ticket votes taken out of these piles. Now, we've seen videos of voters of election poll counters swearing, flipping off ballots. Remember those videos that came out? People crumpling things up, throwing things off to the side. We've seen people filling things in. And here's the question. We have to figure out where along the way, and I don't even care if it means going through the dumps in Pennsylvania, right? So we got to figure out if and where a bunch of Trump ballots were cast aside. Here's the interesting thing, and I'm gonna hold up for this. We actually published this on the National Pulse yesterday. We're gonna put a story up again here. I wonder if we can get a zoom in here on the screen. No, I mean I think we can. So, in order, this is one of the things that we're one of the graphs that we're putting together. Some of the team have put together here. You can see when the vote stops at a certain point in the night. When the vote stops, and what's calculated is, hey, we need to get up here real quick and just get over this line. The statisticians look at that and they go, what are the odds in this whole election? What are the odds of not just the votes stopping at that particular point in time, more ballots being taken in and counted at that particular time, but that Biden's trajectory then stops? I mean, you can see on this thing the trajectory right here. That's a steep incline right here after they start finding all these ballots in the middle of the night. But what's the chance that trajectory just managed to stop and just creep over the line to where they need to be? That implies that not only are the ballots being found and added to the totals, but that Trump ballots are just they just stop dead. He is no longer getting an increase in his ballots after a certain point in the night. And so that's what a judge needs to look at this and say, is this statistically likely in any?
No,
the
mainstream media believes in science and evidence and data. We've been beaten over the head of this, and we're saying we're actually the science, data, and evidence guys. You're the mass hysteria guys. But the mass hysteria was a cover. That was a cover to understanding they could not beat Trump in a stand-up election with everybody had to go to the vote. They had to come up with this thing on mail-in ballots. It's completely fraudulent. Joe Biden's got to understand, if he's ever to be considered legitimate and legal to the 71 million MAGA voters that voted for President Trump, and there may be some portion of that, let's say 10 million, but the 60 million people that are the MAGA movement that voted for Trump, right? You're the 16 and 20 voters. You're never going to be considered legitimate. You're never going to be considered, legal until you assist actively in getting to the bottom of this. You got this. You sit there and give all this happy talk about the soul of the country and everything like that. If you believe in the Constitution, if you believe in the soul of the country, you want to try to unify. It cannot be unified around an illegal, fraudulent vote. And I'm sorry what Jack Dorsey and Twitter says, and I'm sorry what Zuckerberg's going to put up or pull down. You can keep pulling it down. The more you pull it down, the more powerful it gets, right? Because now people are seeing through the fog of war, and they're seeing what reality is here. And remember, this process goes on. President Trump, we're going to close on his victory, but you've got the vote in January, and we've got John Frederick's in there. We're not going to sit there and allow you to flood the zone with new people going down to the register to vote, right? Just for this election, we're going to be all over that, all over the details. We're going to be standing guard on this, and taking back the House in 2022. This is all part of a process. The MAGA process. And the first order of business is to close on the victory that the MAGA voters gave the president overwhelmingly, with the legal votes, the votes that can be certified. And the state legislature is going to have to, you're going to have to man up here, right? Because there's going to come decision day, I think, down close to the first week of December, right? Where these are not going to be able to be certified. They're not going to be certifiable. And I believe the certification issue is going to go to the Supreme Court. I think the president's correct there.
Here's something to think about as we talk about this Dominion voting system, right? That's been in 27 of the states, certainly all of the swing states, and all of the places where we've had some irregularities. Now, there's very interesting. I think somebody should get the Secretary of State for Texas on the line, because the state of Texas did a full-scale investigation into the reliability of these systems just 1 year ago. They found that certification should be denied on every level. Installation is complex, error-prone, and tedious. Certification should be denied. Test voting. Can't even go through all the errors in this. Certification should be denied. Misleading messages, i.e. the ballot marking devices, incorrectly inform voters that they were casting their ballots.
Wow.
Certification should be denied. Disappearing messages, information, certification should be denied. USB port vulnerability, certification should be denied. Conclusion, certification should not be granted.
Wow.
And yet this is in all these other states. And remember, big tech has always told us about how safe these things are. I'm going to post this to my Twitter feed, Jack Maxey1, at Jack Maxey1. You can read it and weep. And I recommend that CNN,
before it
Madeline
gets pulled
Peltz, and
down.
everybody
Read
should
it.
read their conclusions.
Read it quickly before it gets pulled down.
Well, it's
Jack-
from the Department
Jack-
Secretary of State from Texas.gov, so you may have a little bit of problems.
Well, I don't know.
They don't. What do you mean?
don't
They
care.
silence the president of the United States, the chief magistrate. There's some guy in Texas. They have no problem. Yes, sir.
Jack, what about the other thing you found? I'm really interested in that in the Google search term stuff.
Oh, yeah, somebody did a Google search term, and let me bring it up, Raheem. What was it?
It was the okay. So, and I've just done it as
Go
well.
with it, yeah.
All right. So on Google Trends, guys, it's really interesting. Jack, whoever found this is a genius. Search terms like election fraud jail and election fraud punishment spiked a week ahead of the election. Now, specifically, when I do it on Google Trends, I know you'll go find something different, but when I find it on Google Trends, I find it's top one, Arizona, second one, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Texas, and even California's in there.
Seems to me that there are some guilty consciences out there, and I would tell you people to come forward now, because this is not going to stop. Nobody is going to give up. Rudy Giuliani put the mob in jail. He's not going to have any problem tracking you down in West Philly.
There's no conspiracies, but there's no coincidences. Just randomly, what are the top three states you got there? What are the first three states? This is
I got
random.
Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania.
And what are we talking about all morning? Arizona, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, right? So this is in Michigan is going to be it's going to be a really amazing lawsuit that gets filed in Michigan tomorrow. So I think this gets battle, and my understanding is Paul Clement, the legendary Paul Clement, has committed to represent the Trump effort here in appellate court. Right when it comes to appellate court, this is going to all go to appellate court before it goes to the Supremes. Yes. I know the mainstream media is going to melt down on this. That it is going to go to the Supremes. And we're going to win there, right? And that's where you're going to actually see these votes are not going to be able to be certified. They're not certifiable. Right? They're not certifiable because they're not legal. So you're going to get this, and then around the first week of December, there's going to be a massive constitutional crisis meltdown, and they're not going to have slates of electors that are certifiable to go to the states on the 14th of December and vote as part of the Electoral College. And what does that mean? It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. What it means, the framers and then the folks back in the mid-19th century, around 1876, the 100th anniversary of the Republic of the Declaration of Independence, right? The 100th anniversary, they had an election there that was absolutely a fracas, right? And they had other changes. And what happens? This goes to the House of Representatives by state party delegation. And guess what? We win there 28-22. Nancy Pelosi with her got that big gavel she's banging on there. Right, so there'll be a lot of hair on that because you got quorum issues, you got all kind of issues. But it's going to be, January is going to be a monster year in global politics because that's where this is going to get sorted out. This is where the election sort out the Senate. You can't even do the vote in the Senate. Votes will take place in the 6th. Can't even do that because that's the day of the election in Georgia to determine the U.S. Senate. So what did we tell you 3 months ago? November 3rd is just one date it's just another post you got to pass in the process, right? We told you that months ago, and now we're in the middle of it. At 2:00 in the morning, Bill McGinley on the show on election day, right? Overnight, said you're in the grind. Okay, he who wins is he who can grind the hardest. Okay, we now got Dave Bossie, we got Rudy Giuliani, we got grinders, and you got a president of the United States. He's not going to back down 1 inch. In fact, I think he's going to Pennsylvania to read some obits from the dead that voted in the election, that are trying to steal the election from him. The dead will rise again, at least in Pennsylvania, to vote. Back in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
I'm sure the Biden administration is going to address that. I think his first step saying, let's focus on the science, let's depoliticize, testing data, listen to the science is the exact opposite of Trump. But you have 2 months, and we can't let this vaccination plan go forward the way the Trump administration is designing it, because Biden can't undo it 2 months later. We'll be in the midst of it. And I've been talking to governors across the nation about that. How can we shape the Trump administration vaccine plan to fix it or stop it before it does damage?
And we're in an emergency right now. We're seeing the cases rise across.
Well, listen, let's look at Governor Cuomo, right? He's hated the president since day one. This is the same guy who sentenced over 10,000 New York elderly to danger and potential death. Actually, over 10,000 of them died when he sent them back to their nursing homes. And here he is lamenting the fact that we have a potential vaccine that could save lives. And his only anger is that it came out while President Trump was still the president. Well, let's remember why it came out while President Trump is president, because he put whole of government behind getting this vaccine done. Now, I will say one thing that's interesting to me is we don't really seem to have any more information from Pfizer that's concrete about this. They're not really giving us the raw data or anything like that. This is an estimation that it may be 90% effective. What I find strange about that is if they're not giving us concrete data points, and this is sort of a rough estimate of how this thing is going to work out, why couldn't they have said this 5 days ago or 6 days ago when it might have had an impact on the election? I think these are all things that we have to worry about, think about. I do think that this vaccine is going to get out there, and I think it's going to be important for many people, but by no stretch are we out of the woods in terms of the vaccine. But as far as we are out of the woods at all is because Donald Trump has put us there. We are ahead of the entire world in that regard.
Okay, the largest news site in the world, the Daily Mail of London, but it's got a massive U.S. presence, largest site here, I think it is. It got its second lead story. Trump tweets through night about his legal challenge to Biden victory. President's lawyers claim Supreme Court could declare Pennsylvania vote unconstitutional, and that 9,000 non-residents voted in Nevada. So today it's game on with the legal. Rudy Giuliani and the team are supposed to have this lawsuit up at about noon, filed at noon. They're going to do a press conference. We're going to cover all of that later today. I'm at 1 o'clock. I'm going to be with Seb Gorka doing a special 1 hour on his show on YouTube, or you just Google Seb Gorka. Great Salem radio guy, one of the strategy guys I had work at the White House with me at Breitbart for many years. Fantastic guy, great show. Your National Pulse is at
3 o'clock.
3
Real
o'clock.
America's Voice.
And who's going to do the stats today?
It's going to be Raheem Kassam walking you through the stats today.
Fabulous, fabulous. We'll take some of that as a highlight reel. We'll come back at 5 o'clock. We're going to do some of that. We're going to have other stats people on here. We're going to talk about the legal. We got so much detail to go. And remember, game on right now. It's the fight. Maggie, you're getting lit up everywhere by the progressive. They're not happy that you're on the show with Raheem, that you guys are questioning this, are they?
No, they're not. And it's funny, some of these tweets I think are going to, I would like to catalog them for, posterity. But we've got an individual claiming jokers like Fog City Midge and Raheem Kassam are at Steve Bannon's show, where either they're just stupid or they're making the audience a fool by making them believe that Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Georgia are on the way for Trump to win. Very funny and satisfying. I feel like I want to put that one on the wall.
Put
and
it on
come
the
back
wall.
To
Just keep put
It's
it on
weak. I've had
weak.
worse than that.
Come on, give us hard.
we got some haters,
Yeah,
but
I love haters. Haters are good.
Little message.
These people are going to have a meltdown.
Little message for Thomas Paine when things got rough. This is what he said to his people. Nil desperandum. That means never despair. That is the motto for you and me. All are not dead, and where there is a spark of patriotism, we will rekindle it. People stay in the fight.
Tom Paine was a guy that knew about revolutions, right? American Revolution, French Revolution. That guy was everywhere. He was a tough guy. Okay, let's do the reset, and not the giant reset. That's what the globalists want with the removal of Donald Trump as the president. President Trump won on November 3rd. He's got a whole team that's set and focused on closing on his victory. There is a little difference in the team. Some are focusing on recounts, others focusing on disqualifying the mail-in ballots. Some understand this is a constitutional issue, and I think people now are rallying to that. Ted Cruz and some other people are saying, hey, this is a constitutional issue. You saw Mark Levin last night with Ken Starr. We have an obligation to play this out to the end, and play it out to the end we shall. Remember, the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking on Biden world, right? Because on December 6th, if this thing's not sorted out, if these are not certified by Secretary of State, CNN, the Associated Press, Decision Desk HQ, none of those have any legal standing. They have an opinion. Their opinions maybe a little more put out there than yours, but that's what it is, just an opinion. This is a legal process, okay? These votes have to be, legal votes have to be certified. And I think that's a great mantra that Boris and the team and the president come up with. Count all legal votes. Not count all votes. Count all legal votes, because the only things that matter here are legal votes. Okay, how did they get the show this afternoon at 5 o'clock?
So we've got the live stream up. It's at warham.org. You can go to pandemic.warham.org. You'll be able to go to Rumble to watch this in the post. You can download it on the podcast across all podcast platforms. We'll also have a live link up from now on the National Pulse website as well. Trying to mirror it in as many places as possible, basically. America's Voice got DDoS attacked.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you can't DDoS attack the National Pulse. You can try. We're pretty robust.
That's pretty robust.
Yeah.
Want to give a compliment to the guys out in Denver. AmericasVoice.news. Go to that website. That's our principal. Just go right there, camp out all day long. You're going to get great news. They're doing a fantastic job with John Solomon and the team. Okay, we're back at 5. I'll be doing media all throughout the day. Make sure we'll tweet it out or get it out to you guys to make sure everybody sees it. We're back at 5 every day. We're going to be focused on the battleground states and also talking about what's happening down in Georgia. Control of the Senate is now around Georgia. This is a political warfare. It's fine. Take a deep breath. We're not just winning it, we're going to close on the victory. Donald Trump is the greatest closer in American history. He won a massive victory on November 3rd. Do you honestly think that he's just going to walk away from this victory? Is they're talking to Trump and they're telling him to concede. It will not happen. He will never concede when he won.
And he won't walk away from us, and we won't walk away from him.
71 million Americans. See you back here at 5.